Yá'át'ééh, bene. Good morning, my relatives. Hello. Today is Friday, March 14. I'm sitting here with my second cup of coffee. I'm back from my travels to San Francisco last weekend, and I have a few things I would love to talk with you about. First of all, if we're going to start talking about, because March is Women's History Month, I want to honor Marcella LeBeau, who passed away 3 or 4 years ago. But there was an article honoring her in Native News Online today. I want to share that article with you and just share some stories of my experience meeting Marcella. And then I want to talk later in this episode about what you may not have heard about, which is the vindictive behavior of the GOP towards the District of Columbia and what they're doing through this continuing resolution and this government shutdown that is threatened and is voted on today. So I want to talk some about that. And then if I have time towards the end, I want to just talk about some changes about the airline I fly most frequently, which is Southwest Airlines, and some things they're doing differently, and share a few thoughts on that. But anyway, before I begin, let me do like I always do and acknowledge I'm speaking to you from what's now called Washington, D.C., but these are the traditional lands of the Piscataway. And I want to honor the Piscataway as the hosts of the land where I live. I want to thank the Piscataway for their stewardship of these lands. And I just want to state and remind myself and all of us to walk humbly on the land where we're living. Remember that the history and the stories of those lands go far beyond what's recorded in U.S. history books. So my Piscataway relatives, Yá'át'ééh, thank you for your stewardship of these lands. So let's jump. Well, first, let me just say hi to people. I was gone last weekend. I flew to San Francisco. I did end up doing 5 events while I was there, and they went really well. I really enjoyed my time in San Francisco. I did one event on Friday evening at a church. I was at the Grace Fellowship talking about decolonizing health. Saturday morning, I did a smaller event at a friend's house, and we talked with some people about the current political situation, the history, common memory, as well as decolonizing health and decolonizing faith, and kind of the real threat of what's going on right now in these times. And then I did something very similar Saturday night at a church in near Oakland, across the bay. I preached at a church Sunday morning and then met with another group of leaders Sunday night and had a very similar conversation that I had on Saturday. And it went really well. I really enjoyed my time there. It felt good to get out, to be engaging with people, to be talking proactively about the challenges we're facing as a nation, but also to give people some ways to think about what's going on and how to make sure we don't just fall into the partisan screaming and chaos that's going on right now, as well as to talk about the need to be healthy and to take care of ourselves and our bodies and our mental health and everything else. So yeah, I really enjoyed doing that, and it uh, gave me a good model of what I want to keep doing in the future, especially as we go into a very chaotic 4 years coming up as a nation. And there's a lot of willingness to engage on some of these issues. I'll talk more about that later in this episode, but yeah, hopefully I'll talk about that if I have time. I'm on a bit of a time crunch here today with some scheduling thing I have going on. But anyway, I want to start today by talking about Marcella LeBeau. And I want to share an article with you that was published in Native News Online this week. As you know, March is Women's History Month, and it is important that we honor the women who have worked tirelessly to help form our society, our nation, our peoples. As Navajo people, we are matrilineal and we understand our identities come from our mother's mother. And so Women's History Month is a very important time to honor the women who have done so much, not just in family structures and society structures, but in our nation and in our communities. And so I want to take a few moments this morning to honor Marcella Rose LeBeau. And Marcella is of the Cheyenne River Sioux Nation, And in just the first paragraph of the article in Native News Online said, Marcella LeBeau, a tribal citizen of the Cheyenne River Sioux, lived a long life that was spent in service to others in Indian country and beyond, as a nurse, a tribal counselor, and an advocate. And I did not have a chance to meet Marcella until 2019, just 2 years before she passed away. She died at the age of 102 in November in 2021. But Marcella was at the Native American Presidential Forum in Iowa in August of 2019. And she was there asking questions about the Medals of Honor given for the soldiers who fought in Wounded Knee, the U.S. soldiers, and was pressing the candidates, all 11 candidates who were at that forum, about what they would do regarding those Medals of Honor. And she spoke with people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. And of course, I was there as a presidential candidate as well. And I was really impressed by her when I had a chance to both see her engaging with the candidates, but then also when I had a chance to meet her and to talk with her and to form a short friendship with her before she passed away. Marcella was doing amazing work to advocate for Indian country and to press at the highest levels she was able for the change that she knew was needed in this country. And I found myself incredibly inspired by her and the work she was doing. And I remember because I was at the forum, it was a 2-day forum, and I was there for the first day. I spoke on the second day, and I was there for the first day, and I watched the candidates engage with her, and I watched them talk with her. And not only did she talk about the medals and the Medals of Honor given in the Wounded Knee massacre, but she also talked about the doctrine of discovery. And I'm going to share a picture right now of her and I that we took at this event. This was after I spoke and I had a chance to talk with her. But she was sitting in a chair just off the main stage, and she asked all of the candidates about the Medals of Honor and Wounded Knee. And she asked a few of them about the doctrine of discovery. And I was very impressed that she was asking about the doctrine of discovery and what they were going to do regarding this document. And I was appalled that all of the candidates that she asked regarding the doctrine of discovery, they ignored that question. They talked about Wounded Knee, they talked about the Medals of Honor, but they did not talk about the doctrine of discovery. And so whenever you're sitting in the audience and you hear these questions being asked of our nation's leaders and the politicians, and you see them sidestepping the question and not going into depth into what's being asked, it makes you want to scream, right? It makes you want to jump up and somehow compel them to answer the question. And so I was sitting there watching them ignore Marcella's question regarding the doctrine of discovery time and time again. And so the next day when I was up there and she asked her question, I said something to the effect of, "You were asked twice about the doctrine of discovery yesterday, and I want to answer you. I was appalled that you are the elder in the room, and you are asking these very important questions, and you were not given an answer." And I went in depth into what the doctrine of discovery was and what I thought we needed to do to correct that. And it felt very important to me and very meaningful to me to be able to address her so directly from the stage. And then afterwards, I had a chance to meet and to talk with her. And that's when we took this picture that I just shared. And I was able to stay in touch with her a little bit. We communicated. I gave her one of my books that I wrote, Unsettling Truths, The Ongoing Dehumanizing Legacy of the Doctrine of Discovery. And we were able to communicate a few times over the next few years, even after the campaign, just regarding the work that I was doing and the book I had written and the work that she had done. And again, I was very impressed. Marcella LeBeau is an inspiration. And I want to absolutely honor Marcella today. I'm grateful for Native News Online for putting that story on their website today. And for Women's History Month, I want to honor Marcella LeBeau. I want to thank her for her service to our country. I want to thank her for her service to Indian country. And I want to thank her for her service to all of humanity. Yá'át'ééh, Marcella. Thank you for doing everything you can to helping us as a people, as individuals, as a nation, and as a world to walk in beauty. You are loved and well remembered. Next, I want to take a few moments, and I want to thank those who are on here. George, Yá'át'ééh, thanks for joining this morning. It's good to have you here. Spice says, nice. Yá'át'ééh, thanks for joining this morning. It's good to have you here. Shantina, Yá'át'ééh, in Virginia, thank you for tuning in this morning. I appreciate all of you who are here. It's good to share my morning cup of coffee with you. I want to now talk about what's going on. It's in the country, but it's also primarily, the issue I want to raise is what's going on in D.C. As you know, Congress, going into this new year, was not able to pass a budget, right? They've decided, both sides of the aisle have decided to use the budget as a bludgeoning stone to attack the other side. With disregard for what this does to our reputation as a nation, to the people we have obligations to around the globe, right? As long as they can beat the other side with the budget, that's really all they care about. And they've been doing that for a long time. And both sides do it. It's not like it's just the Republicans or just the Democrats. Both sides do it. They use our budget as a weapon, and they are unable to do one of the most basic jobs, right? If Congress had to write down 5 things that they did yesterday, passing a budget should be at the top of their list, and they can't get that done. And it's not a single Congress member, it's Congress in general. They're just not able to accomplish the work we actually vote for them and send them to Washington to do, which is to help us figure out how to spend the money that we're collecting in our taxes. But that's all beside the point. As they have not been able to pass a budget for 2025, they have been putting us on continuing resolutions, and DC they're now talking about doing the last continuing resolution ends today at midnight. And so the Republicans have put forward another continuing resolution, and the continuing resolution essentially says we're going to keep going at the same year's previous budget, and we're not going to defund anything, but we're not going to do these new initiatives yet, and we're just going to keep going as the way we were going last year until we can actually decide to be adults and do our job and pass a real budget. And that's essentially what a continuing resolution is. Now, what's interesting about this is DC is technically, our budget is under the control of the Congress. Now, the Nixon administration, we gained the ability as a district to kind of govern and rule ourselves to some extent. We were able to elect a mayor and have city councils and have wards and have a more localized government, not run day to day by Congress. But Congress still gets the ability to, they still have to approve all the laws we pass, and they have to approve our budget every year, and they have to, right, they're, again, it's not that dissimilar from the lot that Native peoples hold in this country, where we have reservations and we have tribal councils, but we're very much under the thumb of the federal government and kind of wards of the state in that way. And the District of Columbia is very similar in a lot of respects. It's actually very similar to living on a reservation, living here in DC. And so they have to approve our budget every year. Now, in almost every previous continuing resolution that gets passed by Congress, there's a clause in there because DC, right, we pass our own budget, raise our own revenue through our own taxes, and have our own money that we spend on ourselves, but that budget needs to be approved by Congress. And so and of course, when Congress can't decide on a new budget and they do a continuing resolution, well, we as a city have already done our job. We've approved our budget. We passed our budget. We're spending, we need to spend our money for the programs we want to have. And so Congress has to approve it. Well, when Congress doesn't approve its budget, ours, they do these continuing resolutions, they usually put a clause in the continuing resolution that says DC is exempt from this and we can continue spending our budget the way we've already approved it, and we're not affected by, we don't have to hold to last year's budget. And because the majority of these funds are our own money, we have the money, we've raised them through taxes, and we're just ready to spend them as we invest in improving our city and serving the citizens of the District of Columbia. But the GOP this year removed that clause from the continuing resolution. And they said, we're going to treat DC just like any other federal agency. And we're going to remove that clause from the continuing resolution. Now, this would, and I'm going to share an article with you. This is first an article from the AP, which talks about what's going on here. And then the second article from the Washington Post, which talks about what's going on here. And so, again, I want you to remember what we're talking about is a budget that our city council has already passed to spend money we've already raised through our taxes. We have the money, we passed the budget, we're implementing these programs, we've been doing it now for the past 3 months. And now, with this new continuing resolution, they took out that clause and they said, no, you're being treated just like the rest of the federal agencies, and you need to go back to your 2024 budget and spend at that level. Now, this is actually going to affect our current budget over the next 6 months by about $1 billion of money we have that we are just being told by Congress we cannot spend. We have to put that money into some fund for excess funds, and we can't spend it. And we've already been spending this money. We've hired more police officers. We've used it to pay teachers. We've used it to expand our services in the district. And so now, until Congress passes a budget, we have to start looking at, do we need to reduce our police force? Do we need to fire teachers? Do we need to cut back on, this literally will have, not just we won't be able to expand the way we were hoping to grow things in our district this year, but we have to cut back because we were already using our budget. And so we may have to start firing police officers, or firing teachers, or cutting budgets to schools, or cutting budgets for other city services and programs for the people of the district. And this is merely vindictive behavior by the GOP. Now, when the White House was asked about this, they said, oh, we didn't ask anyone to do this. We didn't know that was put in there. This wasn't our doing. Yeah, just like Trump said the insurrection in 2021 was, he didn't call for that. No, Trump does not acknowledge that he has a bunch of minions who really want to impress him, and they really want to do his bidding. And when he says, go there and attack that, or go there and dismantle this, or go there and do that, when he even just says, oh, I would like to see this happen, or I would like, right, he just has to think those thoughts or express those desires, and his minions will literally go out and do it for him to make him happy. Right? After the lynching of George Floyd, we built Black Lives Matter Plaza just a few blocks away from the White House because we were so disgusted with the way Trump was treating marginalized communities in this country and the way he had very little regard for the value of Black lives. And one of his minions, right? One of the Congress members, I forget which one now, literally passed a law saying that we need to take down Black Lives Matter Plaza or we're going to lose funding, like we're now losing it. And so we have literally begun. I put the wrong article in here. Sorry. That was the other one. Here's an article from NPR that is talking about how we're, as a district, we're literally dismantling Black Lives Matter Plaza. And I think Congress wants to turn it into Liberty Plaza, which of course is all about honoring the value of white men, because people of color and other peoples from the margins have very little value in the society that Trump is trying to build right now. And so, so Trump has been disgusted and not like DC, and that is to be expected, right? This is largely a city of people of color. Most of the long-term residents who don't move here for political jobs are people of color. Almost a majority of them are African American, and we've never had a vote. We've never had representation in Congress, and the city votes largely Democratic. And so Trump has not enjoyed his time in our district because he knows the district does not support him. In fact, J.D. Vance got booed at the Kennedy Center just the other day for what they're doing to the Kennedy Center, but he was there to watch a concert and he literally got booed before the concert, that's a whole nother discussion. But anyway, and so Trump is not like DC, going back to his first term in office. And so the dismantling of Black Lives Matter Plaza, and now the threatening to cut our budget and to make not the actual cutting of our budget. And so there was a protest here in DC yesterday. And the problem is who do we protest? We don't have a voting member in Congress. We literally don't. There is no one who represents the citizens of the District of Columbia in Congress or in the Senate. Yes, we have a non-voting member who can there to propose some things, but no one who has a vote. And so when we're protesting, we have no leverage. We have nothing to say because we have no vote. And so literally, instead of protesting, we're begging. We're begging is what happens because we don't have a vote in this government. And I don't know if you've heard last night, but Chuck Schumer, right, the Democratic leader of the Senate, he in a closed door meeting with the Democratic senators and on the Senate floor afterwards, he stated that he was going to support passing the continuing resolution as is. Now, the problem is when the House passed the bill with that clause removed, they passed the bill on like Wednesday and then they left town. Meaning if the Senate tried to change the bill, it would shut down the government because the House was not in session. This is just completely irresponsible and grown men acting like children, but that's a whole nother discussion. And so Chuck Schumer looked at the bill and he never said it was a good bill, but he said shutting down the government will only help Trump and Musk continue to dismantle our agencies and our government. And so Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader of the Senate, said, I'm going to support this bill. He told other senators to vote on their own, but he told them what he was doing, signaling as their leader, this is the way I want you to go. And so this is what our district is facing right now. And it's fascinating living here, right? I've talked before about living in DC, where you somehow separate yourself from the chaos of what's going on Capitol Hill, because you can't live there without getting unhealthy. the stress and just it's all just it's a stressful environment that's not sustainable. And so if you live in DC long term, you find a way to disconnect from that. Now, every now and then Congress will reach its tentacles out and demonstrate its influence over us. And the Democrats do it just as much as the Republicans, right? When Joe Biden was in office, he promised that they would not, because Congress has to approve all of our laws. And a few years ago, we passed a law regarding our policing, and the Democrats vetoed it. Joe Biden vetoed it after promising he would not do that, and he would allow DC to govern itself to score points with his political backers. He vetoed our bill. And so don't think this is just the Republicans being horrible people. No, both sides do it. Both sides use the District of Columbia as pawns in their political battles with one another. They literally don't care about the majority people of color living in this district. They know we don't have a voice. Neither side has any intention of giving us a voice. And so they treat us as pawns in the games that these white men play with each other. So that's the challenge that's going on in DC right now. And I wanted just to kind of let you in, because the Democrats are going to be talking about how they're doing these things for the good of the country, and they're doing these things, right? Blah, blah, blah. No, they're just cowards. They literally are just cowards. And they're not willing to stand up for the people they say they stand on the side of. And so that's one of the things going on here in the district right now. And on one hand, you feel helpless when you live here because, again, we have no vote. I can't believe how similar it feels living in the District of Columbia to living on an Indian reservation, right? When we lived on the Navajo Nation for 11 years, I felt this same sense of powerlessness. And you feel the same thing right here in the District of Columbia, where I literally have nowhere to turn. There's no one to talk to about how to fix this, because no one in this Congress represents us. Anyway, that's my little discussion regarding that. The last thing I want to bring up, and it's fun, but it's also, it's sad. Southwest Airlines is changing, right? There's been an activist investor that's been trying to get Southwest to make more money. And Southwest, I kind of look at it as like it's the Aldi or the Trader Joe's of the airline industry. Where both, if you shop at either Aldi or Trader Joe's, right, they're not gourmet food. They do a lot of in-house brands. They do things differently. Trader Joe's has these little cashier lines that have a ton of cashiers, but they look like the line's long, but you go through pretty quickly. Aldi, they don't bag your groceries. They literally just throw them right back into your cart, and then you go to another place and bag it. But they both found ways to like get you through the cashier line very quickly. And yeah, if you want organic food or you want other types of higher end food, you'll go to another grocery store. But there's some things that both Aldi and Trader Joe's get very right. And Southwest is the same way. It's a lower cost airline, but they do things differently that actually makes sense and moves things along well. One of the things they do is they're like a bus, right? They don't assign seats. And so there's actually motivation to check in early, because the earlier you check in, the better seat boarding pass you're going to have, which means the more choice of seats you'll have to sit in. That makes sense, right? They allow 2 bags to fly free. That means you can check 2 bags for free. What this does is it means many people check their bags, less people carry them on. There's less baggage in the overhead compartment. They don't have to gate check bags nearly as frequently. Boarding process is quicker. It just goes quicker. Now, this activist investor, I forget his name, is like, hey, other airlines are making over $1 billion, 1.3, 1.4, $1.5 billion off of their luggage. You guys are making $370 million. We could be making a whole lot more money if we just start charging for bags. And they're also now going to start assigning seats. And so the bummer thing is Southwest is losing two of the major things that made them distinctive. They just announced, and they promised, literally the CEO promised like 6 months ago, they were not going to drop the free bags. They were not going to do that. That was a core part of their identity as a company, and that was not on the table. And then I found an article 3 days ago, that said, yeah, oh, by the way, we're going to start charging for bags in May. And so, and right, I flew Southwest because I like their quirkiness. I like their 2 bags are free policy. As an author who sells books a lot, I would take 2 bags of books with me and not have to pay anything to take them to the places where I would be speaking so I could sell my books. I love the way that you could get on the bus. Actually, one of the reasons I started flying them is because they didn't put you into classes, right? There wasn't this, I mean, yes, you could board earlier, but you just need to time your check-in and you can get a fairly good seat. It's available to anybody who, no matter how cheap your ticket is, you could still get an A boarding pass if you just timed your check-in well. And I really like the fact that it literally felt like a bus. It didn't feel like there's the part behind the curtain and there's the people who get these fancier things and there's classes. I like that it was an open seating. I actually really like that. And now Southwest is losing that distinctiveness. And now they're just becoming like any other airline. And this is what all the, Starbucks used to be a coffee shop where you could go and hang out and get to know the baristas there. And now they're like this. I mean, they're trying to actually go back to that because they grew so big and they started offering so many things they became something where they were no longer personal. Same thing with Chipotle. They did things really well. A burrito. And then they went corporate, and now they're offering all these different flavors and all these different things and they're not doing anything as well as they used to do when they were just the basic thing. And this is the problem with corporate America. Corporate America is built on the belief that growth can be unlimited. And that's not true. The world cannot sustain unlimited. That's called cancer. And when corporations try to grow in an unlimited fashion, it means they lose sight of what they actually do well. And then they all just become mediocre. They all just become this blend of the same thing with a slightly different flavor. You have vanilla and French vanilla, right? I mean, it's just a slightly, and I'm bummed. So I'm bummed that Southwest is losing what made them a distinctive airline and things I thought they did really well. And now they're throwing both those things out the door so their investors can make more money over the next few years. Anyway, those are my thoughts. My relatives, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining me for a cup of coffee. I wanted to let you know that next week, Tuesday, my friend Leroy Barber is going to be joining me. And I've had Leroy on as a guest a few times, and he and I always he's a great friend. He and I always have great discussions. And we're going to be talking on Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. This is the 18th of March. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump's marathon talk or lecture or whatever it was to Congress a week and a half ago. And we're going to be talking about that and also talking about what he's doing and what I'm doing to kind of really begin to counter what is happening in our country right now. Not just protesting Trump, but to counter this whole movement as a nation we're making towards, we'll talk about that. But we're gonna have those discussions on Tuesday over my second cup of coffee here. Leroy Barber will be my guest, and I invite you to join us for that. I also want to let you know every month on my Patreon, I do a kind of an Ask Me Anything, a Q&A for the members of the Ask Questions tier and above on my Patreon site. And next week, or a week from Sunday, so Sunday the 23rd, is when I will be doing my next Q&A. It's going to be at 8 p.m. Eastern time in the evening. And if you want to join that Q&A, you can sign up for my Patreon at the Ask Questions tier or above, and you will receive an invitation to join that Q&A. And we have discussions about things I've taught, things I've been studying, things I've written about, even just comments on what's going on in the current news and the other cycles going on. And so I really love these discussions. And so I invite you to join me for that. I'm going to put the link for my Patreon in my, in the chat right now, where you can sign up for that if you'd like. And also I'm continuing to promote my books and to get people. And I've been pleased with how the book sales, as I track them on Amazon. I don't sell through Amazon, but obviously my publisher puts them out on Amazon, and that's the best place I can track how the general public is buying my books, and those are continuing to sell well there. And I'm grateful that this book is helping at least influence some of the dialogue that's going on nationally. Of course, you can always buy signed copies of the book from my website, as well as my book study special, which will give your book study a free 45-minute virtual Q&A if you buy 10 copies signed from my website. Anyway, my relatives, I appreciate all of you. Thank you for joining me for a cup of coffee. Have a great day. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and walk in beauty, my relatives. May we all learn how to walk in beauty together. Sha'át'ééh and hako'onet.